So dear brothers and sisters, the church does not advise anyone on who to vote for, but we do have a set of principles which are derived from our faith in Jesus Christ, which we encourage people to consider when voting. And these principles are the dignity and the worth of every human being whom we believe to be made in the image of God, the fair distribution of wealth, and that the needs of the poor should be given priority, the importance of popular participation in society, that families receive the help and support that they need, the dignity of work and the rights of workers, including just wages, safe working conditions, and proper trade union representation, the principle of solidarity, the importance of supporting those in the community who need our help, and last but not least, the care of God's creation, this beautiful created world in which we live.
The new amendment is even put to Parliament. Would each of you vote for or against a proposal to restrict the word married for use only by a man and a woman, legally married and not by unions of two or more men or two or more women?
Or not. In my view, look, at the time that the law went through, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. It's the definition of the word. That's how I would have voted at the time, but the law's been changed and I have no intention to change it back.
Yeah, the Green Party would, I'd imagine, not go against would not vote for the repeal. It would keep with the status quo, and I feel the same as well.
Yeah, I thought the civil unions law was fine, but obviously the marriage equality law came in, and certainly have no desire to repeal that, and I don't think the party has any desire to repeal that either.
I think if there's one thing I'm proud of, it was Morris Williamson's stand on that provision. So the Māori Party would not support the repeal of that either.
I don't think we're in a position to make such a decision. As I've said, I think the binding referendum is the way to go for this sort of time.
This country, I believe, is founded on the Christian tradition and practices knitted together with the Maori language and culture. In line with this, we have the national anthem, the opening prayers during the parliamentary session, Easter and Christmas holidays. But sadly, I was made to understand that the Auckland Council have decided to do away with the opening prayer. I have a request that can you bring in a legislation or a commitment that while you embrace diversity, the traditional practices like the teaching of Bible in state schools should continue.
I believe that in state schools it should be very much an independent process. So I think they should get a full training of all religions. It shouldn't just be Bible study or Bible lessons. They should be learning about Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, everything like that, because that makes a much more well-rounded set of individuals who are then not going to, I guess, get affected by the likes of ISIS and extremism and things like that. We in the Greens believe that Te Reo Māori in all schools should be compulsory as well, so that everyone gets knows about the second language of New Zealand.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all with Bible studies being taught in school. I don't believe in the argument that schools are circular in state and they shouldn't involve religion, but like Guy was saying, I think if you're going to have to teach all the faiths and all the religions, I think it's really important actually that children learn about that. And as we know, there's actually more similarities than differences actually across all the religions. I think if we take a values approach to it and a philosophical approach to it, I think it's going to be really good for our young people.
We've actually got a large number of faiths, but that doesn't mean you start saying one religion, you can say one thing, another one you can't. So we live in a pluralistic society. Religious freedom is something which must be protected. And if I'm someone who's passionate about religious freedom, freedom of expression, people being able to say what they like. And if there's one thing which that I will fight to death for, is people who disagree with me having the right to say it. Because I think too often people get cut down for saying things which someone else thinks is too PC or something else. In regards to the question of Bible in schools, we all know it's a Board of Trustees decision as to whether that can come in. The school's closed down for that period of time, and there's a proper process for that to happen.
So I don't think there needs to be a change at all, but I would welcome a broader religious education within schools for people to learn about a number of different faiths. And I also would like to see Te Reo brought in compulsorily as well as a core curriculum subject there. So I guess the answer there is no, I probably wouldn't introduce that legislation, but I would support religious education being taught more generally in schools.
I think it is important for children to be taught all religions and the morals and ethics of the religions as well, which is important. But I think we need to protect our history and our culture, both Maori and Pākehā, over the last couple of centuries, and be careful that we aren't too PC, because we embrace all the people that are coming into our country, and it's wonderful to have all these different cultures and amazing people. But we've got to be careful that we don't stand back and let our culture disappear. Thank you.
Do you support mandates of vaccines, especially given that several vaccines contain aborted fetal tissue?
No, I didn't actually know that the vaccines contained that. I don't know if that's true or not, or if that's a conspiracy theory. I have to be frank, I don't know if that's true or not, but I know what science says. I'm a big believer in science when it comes to things like vaccinations. So I feel strongly that people should be vaccinating it. In terms of a mandatory nature, well, I think the incentives work, encouraging people. I don't think you should prosecute someone or give them a conviction for not vaccinating the children, but I mean, we wanted to make sure they're fully informed. I am concerned about the reduced number of vaccinations in New Zealand, actually. I think it's getting a bit out of hand, and I think we need to get back to having higher rates of vaccination.
I'm also not sure about the truth of that, but I am absolutely committed to increasing vaccination rates. I mean, we got rid of polio, we got rid of measles, and when we started seeing kids starting to not be vaccinated, we started seeing the prevalence of those, I guess what they're now called as third world diseases in our communities, and I think we need to lift our vaccination to stop those spreading through our communities. Thank you.
Well, I would like to see that this was actually verified, and needs to see further evidence on this before I could really give my opinion. But I do believe that we need to follow science ahead of scare tactics, and the vaccinations are too important for our young. But in saying that, we do need to be careful with the safety of these vaccinations.
Under the national government, immunisation has increased to 93% for all 8-month-olds, up from 67% in 2007. So I think that's a fantastic increase and goes a long way to helping to prevent a range of diseases, and then I think that's the power of vaccination and vaccinations. I agree with Barry. I mean, the question of whether you make it mandatory or not, I don't think you should make it mandatory. You do need to provide the right incentives.
Yeah, we support, that it's a person's choice whether they vaccinate, but and it would be hard to make it fully mandatory. But a lot of science does support the use of vaccinations, and they are for often deadly or very incapacitating diseases. And so the more people that have them, the better it is for the rest of the country to stop the spread of those diseases.
Approximately 4 3/4 million people. Why on earth do we need 20 district health boards with too many chiefs and too few Indians? Also, there are too many politicians.
This policy is, as you probably know, a New Zealand First policy, reducing the number of MPs in Parliament, which we think really 121 for the size of our country and our population. And if you work out per MP the costs of that, and including that is the office and the secretary and all the other costs, I think it's really quite shocking. We agree with the question that DHBs, we need to look at consolidating the numbers, and there's far too many. 20 is crazy. So, yeah.
Well, I think there's plenty of too many MPs in some parties. And so I'm asking for your party So that answers that question. And in regards to the question around whether there's two DHBs, it comes down to outcomes, not inputs. And too often we have this conversation about, oh, we're going to put $1 billion here and another $1 billion there. What's the outcome? Well, 50,000 more elective surgeries per year is an outcome. That's an achievement. That's actually making a difference in people's lives. And that's what National is going to continue to do.
So I would have to look at, would really want to have a close look at the arguments for that. I know there's talk about building another hospital in the future in Auckland. We're apparently one hospital short here. And there's talk about maybe that it will go in the Ministry of Health, that it might go somewhere between Auckland and Hamilton. And so if that's the case, are we going to build a new DHB around that? Or is it going to be shared? I'm not sure. So there's probably, that raises more questions than answers for me, but I would be very cautious before I would say, yep, we need to amalgamate all these DHBs.
So I just ran a couple of quick numbers. So 121 politicians on 4.75 million people is 1 for every 40,000 people. So in my mind, that doesn't seem like too many. I mean, the politicians are there to represent the people, right? And so you want those politicians to be able to have talks with everyone and represent all those people. And if there's 1 for every 60,000, that makes their job tougher and a lot of less people are getting heard, right? In terms of the DHBs, this year they're forecast to lose $117 million. So, you know, can they keep up the, you know, potential services that they're currently providing, or is it going to have an impact? You know, they've been losing money for the last X number of years, and there's been worse outcomes, some longer delays in certain situations. You know.
One of my concerns would be around access, particularly in kind of rural areas. So I'd want to, you know, have a look at, or perhaps, you know, get the government to have a look at, are these DHBs properly located, are the boundaries right, to service the number of people in those areas that they're servicing. In terms of too many politicians, I actually think what we need to do is to focus on setting up the right conditions in society, so investing in more community-led initiatives and programs so that we can eventually look at reducing the number of politicians there are. But right now we need every politician we can.
It simply says, death duties, question mark.
As the national government actually says, let's grow the economy, let's grow jobs and opportunities so that we can continue to support it and deliver for New Zealanders. So we're not in favour of including a death tax or inheritance tax or whatever you might like to call that, because we believe in actually passing wealth on to generations, not taking it for the government.
So obviously we've got a big problem in this country with the quality of our rivers. We've also got a big problem with people. We're realising people coming here taking our water for nothing. So Labour's responding to that by suggesting that people have to pay for commercial use of water. So that's simply what it is. It's not going to affect the average New Zealander in terms of their home water usage, and it's certainly not going to make any difference in terms of the cost of their living at all at the end of the day. So in terms of there's no plans at all for Labour to introduce any sort of death tax. There's no plans to introduce a capital gains tax. We're going to have a tax working group, just like National did before the last time they were elected. They had a tax working group. That tax working group increased GST.
If you think about death duty, it's effectively taxing someone at the end of their life to then redistribute that wealth back into society. So it is actually a mechanism for making a more equal society, because the people that are more well off provide back into society at the end of their life. When you don't have something like that, the people that are well off hand their money onto their kids, who are then well off, hand their money onto their kids, while the people at the bottom section of society don't get any better off. And so it just maintains an unequal society. So it is something to think about. Not that I'm a huge fan of it, but it is something to think about in that sense. You know, water tax, in what Barry was saying, we have a policy where we will tax water bottlers. So they'll pay 10 cents for every litre that they extract and export to overseas markets.
It's not a New Zealand First policy to tax death duties. We have no right to tax a deceased estate. The deceased person has already paid a lifetime of taxes and contributions, and to tax again at the end of their life, we just simply don't believe in. The full inheritance belongs to the family, and we believe it should be hands-off. Thank you.
We support a fair and equitable tax system, but we have no plans for an inheritance tax at this time.
And the final question is, what is each candidate's view as a local candidate of a rail line from Puanui to the airport, which will service not only Auckland but Hamilton and the southern areas?
Have a busway to going from Howick down to that train station, and then connecting with the train that's going to go through to the airport. The light rail's going to go through the airport, and then long term we have a plan to actually connect parts of the North Island to it as well. So that's very in line. So it's good to see that the person who asked that question has got a similar vision to the Labour Party about improving transport in this part of the world.
The Māori Party has an iwi rail policy, and part of that policy is dealing with the mothballed lines along the Gisborne-Napier area. Part of what we're looking at is how do we expand that model so that we are connecting Hamilton to Auckland, to Tauranga, to Northland. So we are looking at a wider sweep of rail for getting people to the region, so connecting people but also connecting businesses and taking cars off the road.
If you look at any big city like London, Paris, Sydney, anywhere over the world, they've got fully integrated rail, bus lanes, cycleways and everything. And so we definitely believe in bringing Auckland up to that standard. So we're saying airport rail to the city centre by 2021. We'd also look at taking trains to the shore, but we'd also look at putting more train lines in, also down to Hamilton and Tauranga. And then also, in my view of being a local candidate, I reckon a train line from here to the airport would be a good thing. It just takes extra cars off the road. If you keep building roads, more cars will come. So you need to figure out a way to take them off the roads, and that's using rail and buses and cycleways.
New Zealand First believes in the investment in rail. We believe that it's an important part of the transport structure, and the rail has been left for too long abandoned, and we think it's an important part of not just the public transport system, but also commercial as well is very important. But further investigation needs to be done into this before we will confirm whether this is the best way to go to take that step. Thank you.
Well, it's about doing both. So we've announced an investment in the electrification of the railway from Papakura through to Pukekohe, and we've also announced more money to ensure that we continue commuter rail services down to Wellington. Some of the issues that we face around commuter rail in New Zealand is that if you were to have a commuter rail between Auckland and Hamilton, it would take almost twice as long as it would be in a car. So you've got issues around whether people are going to actually jump on that or whether they're just going to choose their car. So you've got to look at the real choices people will be making and work with them, and not just end up subsidising something which never earns money. So you've got to actually make it financially viable.
I would just like to thank all of you for being an outstanding audience. I think we've got through a tremendous amount tonight because you've been such a good audience. But most of all, obviously, I'd like to extend a big thank you to the candidates who've come along and given straight up answers to some fairly thorny questions. So let's give them a
I'd like to thank all of you as candidates, not only for coming along here tonight, but for your commitment to working to achieve the common good in our society through politics. Politics is essential if we are to have a well-run society. It's essential to achieve justice and social justice, to achieve that fairer vision of a decent society that we are so much in favour of. But to have that, it requires people like you to commit yourselves to doing that. And I know that politics is a difficult and a demanding vocation, not only to you but also to your families, so I'd like to thank you. And I'd like to ask us all, let us raise our hands and ask for God's blessing upon each of you. Almighty God, we ask you to pour out your blessing upon each and every one of these candidates and their families. Bless them, protect them, give them the gifts of wisdom, of compassion, of understanding, of commitment to the common good, of commitment to all those who are disadvantaged, poor and marginalised in our society. And may Almighty God bless in each and every one of you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
And the world will be as one. I know you say that we're dreamers, but we're not the only ones. But we're not the only ones. My turn? I hope tonight that we'll be heard for September 23rd.